Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Naked Monkey Podcast. I am your host, Drew. With me, as always, Caleb
Hello.
and Christopher.
What's up?
I love my cat. He's such a fucking awesome dude. He's so weird. His personality's so hilarious.
I love their personalities. We got these two house cats at the same time. They're brothers, but so different.
Yeah. When it comes to animals, dude, if you drop just about any fucking animal that isn't a reptile or a fish off on my porch, I'll probably fall in love with it.
Yeah.
If it's a rodent or
Pretty
a
much.
mammal, that shit's coming inside. I'm going to love that thing. If it's a fish, I mean, it's pretty, but I can't claim to care about it. And if it's
How
a
it
rodent,
ended up on your doorstep, who knows?
Or a bird. I don't
Dude.
give a shit about your bird.
I like birds.
I
Any-
think they're cool, but not in my fucking house.
Anything that can reciprocate, I'm cool with. But like, I'm not about to feed you and house you and water you when you like can't even reciprocate basic affection.
Apparently they do, though. Like, if you leave them alone, if you just get the one parrot, like, they get depressed because they're too smart to just be stuck in a cage.
Oh no! Like I'm team bird. I'm just not team fish or reptile. Those things are soulless, godless animals.
I don't know. I
Reptiles
think
are kind of cool.
alligator, yeah. One of them was a god that one time in Egypt.
That was once. That was once. Every cat was a god in Egypt.
Check and mate.
So was a falcon and a dog. Why don't we go back to that? I want polytheism, and I want them to be animal-based. Let's just make a furry religion.
Dude, let's be honest.
No, yeah, nobody ever talks about how Egyptian mythology is just furries.
Dude, there's a lot of that in like most things because let's be honest, animals are fucking awesome. Like, you're like, hey man,
but that's not an awesome fuck.
No, we don't sleep with them. That's wrong. But they're cool as fuck. Like, I want to be close to you, just not that close to you. That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
but like,
was weird.
that with like, I feel like polytheism is just, I don't know. Like, to me, like monotheism and polytheism, I don't really see them as much different. It's just, there's Caleb, and then there's all these aspects of who I am that are more easily digestible.
Yeah, I think that's what I mean.
I think that's the
polytheistic. Yeah, because it makes more sense to me that like there's these individual personalities,
Mm-hmm.
especially in godlike beings. I don't imagine them to just be perfect all the time. There are going to be exaggerations of their thing.
Yeah.
Well, and even like for me, like I almost look at it like I think that all pantheons, like if I had to really think about it, I don't think that any pantheon is literal. I think they are all a sum of their parts. So like if there is some sort of higher power, because we are human, we are trying to like divide it into digestible human aspects. But like at the end of the day, if you just took every pantheon and threw it into a boiling pot and boiled it down to its purest essence, that's just God. But like God, the vague God, that's kind of hard to relate to.
Right.
So like we try to like be like, oh, there's this and that and this and that and this, but it's like
something must control the weather and the water.
Right. And even if you boil it down to its purest essence, like animism, when people are like, if something has a will, it must be doing something. So like, and like we really do look down on primitive cultures, but like it makes sense logistically. Like if water is moving, and it as hard as it is to imagine that you have no modern education, but like if water's moving, it seems like it has a will, because when you move your arm, you will it to do that. And
Yeah.
when wind blows, why does wind blow? Well, because that's what it willed to do, just the same as when you want to walk, you walk. Like, so if you take that like super rudimentary shamanism, like I can see how most religions slowly developed.
Yeah, there must be somebody who controls, you personify the aspects around you.
Right, because like, why else would anything do anything?
Or is it just easier for them to be like, Poseidon, that bastard, and bringing the rain down 7 days straight? What are you gonna do? You know, it's, you know, that way it's kind of, it's almost like it's out of their hands. You know,
Yeah, it's out of your hands, and it also
stress.
gives you somebody to plea to.
Right.
Like, please, Poseidon, fucking stop.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just like, why even plea? We're all fucked.
And it's the only explanation you could have for like your knowledge of how storms would work. You'd be like, I don't know why. Poseidon must be angry. Like, that's the only thing that makes sense. Like, you have no idea about like hurricanes and whatnot.
Yeah. There's a cool, and I'm going to butcher this because that's my job. There's a cool Buddhist saying that, and I'm not sure if it'll land how it probably should. So if it doesn't, it's not because of the fault of the saying, it's because of my fault in saying it. But it's essentially like, when I was young, I used to just see mountains. And then when I got a little older, I realized that it wasn't just mountains. It was tectonic plates. It was movement of this. It was movement of that. It was all this crazy shit. It was the distance between myself and the horizon. And then when I got a little older than that, I realized that it was just mountains.
Oh yeah.
And so I think that's like, I try to stick to that, because like sometimes I'll be like, I think that is sort of religion in a way. Like when you're a child, it is innate. It's just a basic part of your understanding that things are grandiose and you won't fully understand them, you know?
Yeah.
And then like you get a little older and you start, it's like that bell curve you were talking about. You think you know it all, and then like you get a little older than that and you're like, I don't know shit again. I don't.
And then you rise to some level of competence.
It harkens back to what we were saying earlier of just keep it simple. Let the mountain just be a mountain.
Yeah, it's a mountain.
Yeah.
And like, at best, my understanding of that mountain is gonna be human.
Yeah, it's a bunch of dirt that's piled together. That's my understanding.
Yeah, and it does make it tough when you like think about like, even if you get to like, you know, what they call like the God of the Gaps thing, where you're like, well, back in the day, people, that was their best explanation. Their best explanation was that it was a mountain. But since we're so smart and advanced, we know this and that and this. But then when you start to realize what you don't know, it almost forces you back to the state of you're like, yeah, I don't fucking know. It's just a mountain, man. Like, like we're not really more advanced. We didn't. Somebody put it. I can't remember who said it, but it was really good. They said, back in the day when we would. Oh, it was a Tolkien podcast of Tolkien speeches, and the guy was like, we didn't stop believing. His opener was, we didn't stop believing in fairies because of an abundance of information. We didn't gain access to more information and then stop believing in fairies. When people back in the day used to go out in the woods and then they would see things they couldn't explain or have a lapse of memory and then awaken later, they would be like, oh, it's fairies. And we're like, you idiots. And then nowadays when people see things they can't explain or have a lapse of memory, they say, oh, it was ghosts. Oh, I was abducted. So you're not smarter.
Yeah.
You just have a different cultural explanation.
Boogeyman,
you have a different, perfect. That's a great way of saying that. You have a different cultural boogeyman. Like, you didn't gain more information. And I think a lot of times that's how it is with like the God of the Gap stuff, where we're like, you have some atheists that are just kind of assholes. Like, you're pretending like you gained information when you didn't.
Right.
And I appreciate the information you have, and you are valuable. But that does not actually answer the base questions of like what people are saying here. Like,
yeah, right. That's why I've just leaned agnostic.
Yeah,
I'll exist in the margins.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Maybe it'll be multiple gods.
I appreciate a lot of what a lot of people have to say, you know? Like,
yeah.
I don't. I think people talk too much anyway.
Fuck them.
Right. I mean, I don't think everybody needs to have an opinion on everything. I don't need to hear everybody's opinion on one topic. You know what I mean?
It can be dude, that's way too much. Yeah, I don't think anybody can digest all that shit.
Young toddler, how do you feel about 9/11? What?
It's fine. We don't need to know. That is a good point. Like, at what point do you just be like, yeah, like, I'm all for hearing you out, but I'm not so sure that this little girl should have her say in the Salem witch trials.
Right.
There's a lot of people that have died because we're just listening to these children.
You got to hear every side of the argument. You got to hear everybody's opinion. No, you don't. That's why usually one person orders at a fucking drive-thru.
You got to have a democratic, like...
You got to have one guy who knows what to say when they get to the window. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I was going to say democratically elected, but I guess that's not necessarily true. You do have to have some sort of leader, though.
Usually the guy driving the car, if he driving, he tends to own it. Therefore, he has the capital. Therefore, he can afford to go to the drive-thru, and he usually speaks. Boom.
Yeah. And that happens even in, like, the simplified version where you're like, well, I mean, this guy, he's the chieftain with the most wives, and he can beat us all in armed combat, so I guess he's going to order at the drive-thru. If you want to order at the drive-thru, feel free to challenge me at any moment. That's like the chieftain's mentality there.
Walk me to the drive-thru.
Yeah, the moment you can order at the drive-thru and stop me from doing it, you're the leader. I don't know if that's the greatest government, because then we would just have like our president would just be like Mike Tyson. And that sounds pretty fucking terrible.
He ran for office once.
Did he run?
He participated.
Yeah, because like that is it is weird to think like how humanity moves like that, though. Like, you have somebody who's like back in the day in certain environments, and probably never like as simplified as like maybe I think it is, but like you could probably get away with just being a bully, right? Like in like certain environments, but like nowadays, like you have to be way more clever to be a bully. Like, it's about money and status. It's not really about like, I'm gonna hit you.
I mean, sometimes it involves that, though.
I think there's low level bullyism. I think it still does.
I think the best bully mechanic is shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just like, you're gonna do that?
I don't know. Shame will make a person feel something for a long time, whereas a black eye goes away after a while.
Do you think shame is ever like useful?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it could be sometimes.
Yeah, if you did like something you are fully ashamed of, and you better yourself to not do it again,
Then it was useful.
Yeah. You became a better person for that shameful act.
I think we've talked about that before, but like, yeah, like your ability to deal with like when you can reconcile shame as being like reasonable. Like if like I do something like say I like steal something from you and you guys shame me, then I could reasonably be like, you know what? Yeah, that was fucked up. Like I need to regain trust. I have broken the social contract.
Yeah.
So like that's useful. A useful feeling of guilt or shame, but like it's weird to me sometimes because like a lot of times I like to feel like we have this innate knowledge of right and wrong as a species, but then why the fuck do we just be like totally inequitable and unfair and just murdering people for like weird shit in so many different like areas, like even the most advanced countries where like, oh, you're doing this like thing that like most people don't do, so like we should probably like make you have a lobotomy.
As I think of people with enough power, they surpass shame. No one's gonna shame them because they have all the power.
With enough power and money, you can surround yourself with enough people who will never shame you for anything you do.
Yeah. Or, yeah, they'll always, there's enough that are going to bolster you for what you're doing versus the ones that are shaming you. Especially when the ones shaming you don't matter. You're surrounded by the people you want, so what do you care?
Do you think it's the same dynamic, just on a smaller scale for like tribes and communities?
Absolutely.
Because I wonder that like, what is it that causes like this like small community to be like, fuck this particular activity, even though it's not the same activity as like the community right next to us?
I don't know. I think probably a little bit of shame.
So I guess that's when shame turns against it. Like it's not actually good. We're just like we're gonna we're shaming you for like something that actually isn't really baneful.
Right. Well, I mean that's the thing. Is we shame the wrong things in culture. Like we don't shame line jumping as much as we do gay people, and I think that's probably not right.
More on the tribal thing is like if this tribe sees how this tribe is doing so much better and thriving, now they have a bad shame because they feel inferior, you know?
So almost like, yeah, no, that's an interesting way to think about it is when does, I think there's a difference between, I don't know how to like say the point I want to say, like we're hoping you feel guilt when you do something wrong. So when you don't feel guilt for what you've done wrong, we shame you for it. But then there's another layer that's like, this isn't really guilt or shame. We're just insecure and you make us uncomfortable and we hate you.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of that like
issue, really.
Right. Like I think a lot of the homophobia comes from that.
Yeah.
To be honest, because like I've never been like endangered if a gay person compliments me.
Right.
Like I feel like
I think that's why so many people will tell people that make fun of gay people or are homophobic that, well, that means you must like it then, right? Because you're getting so instantly defensive of it. Like, why? If it's not a problem to you, then why is it encouraging that defensiveness so quickly?
Right. Nothing scream, the dude who can't take a gay joke.
Right, where you're like, oh, maybe what was I had a buddy Jose who always used to make the joke, methinks you protest too much.
Yeah, that's good.
Although I guess on the opposite end of that, I've watched like, you ever watch like those YouTube videos of like interrogations and shit?
Yeah.
And they'll kind of say like, there's like a middle ground where like if I just walk up to you and accuse you of stealing, Chris, when you didn't, there's like a level of being offended that is normal, where you'd be like, I can't believe you'd fucking say that. What the fuck, man?
Mm.
And then there's so like, you shouldn't just be like, oh, I'm wounded that you would say that. Because like, that's also suspicious that you're just like so nonchalant.
Yeah, that you don't care.
So like, there's a middle ground of like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
Because like, and we all get that. Like, I think it's like innately, like if you're, I've been in that situation where somebody I care about like says like, hey man, did you do this? And I'm just like, what the fuck? Why would you think I would do that? But then there's like that when you did do it and they accuse you, and you're like, I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about. And you're like, what?
Did you eat the last cookie? I wanted that last cookie, and you got a mouthful. He's like, what are you talking about? I've never
exactly.
seen
Yeah. So I don't, it's kind of funny. Like there's like that. Watching interrogations is interesting, dude.
Yeah, can't say I've ever watched them, but it does. I could see the appeal.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see how humans react under pressure to like things they like, because going into the interrogation, they totally fucking shot this person.
Yeah,
it's like watching it play out.
See what they'll do to try and get out of it.
Mm-hmm. Or like feign insanity. Those are some of the most interesting ones.
Parkland shooter.
Yeah, fucking wild shit, dude.
They're entertaining as fuck. They're funny. Like, not funny, but they're like, wow.
Yeah. Funny, whoa, not funny, ha ha.
Yeah, that, exactly.
Yeah, I randomly, I'll put them on sometimes. Dude, I used to put on shit like that when I'd go to sleep, but...
What the fuck?
Yeah, because, like, well, the narration voice is soothing.
I can kind of see that.
It's like, yep, the guy who's just, he's got like this chill ass ASMR voice. But like, I used to fall asleep to that. But then one time, dude, I was jarred awake because autoplay on YouTube was on. And it was just this old woman like screaming bloody murder. And like, I wake up and I'm like, what the fuck? And like, I look over and it's 911 calls that have gone wrong. And so I'm just, my alarm clock that day was an elderly woman being murdered on the phone. And I'm like, maybe I'll just stop doing this for a while because this is just not a great way to wake up.
But man, I bet you were a fucking awake.
Dude, I was awake. My heart was racing. I was like, what the fuck am I hearing? I think it integrated into my dream. It was terrible.
Shit.
The weirdest erection I've ever had.
Right. You're like, well, I gotta finish this. And I don't know about y'all fellas, but